and girls, my name's Dan, welcome back to the Forge. In this episode of Trust Me, I'm a Blacksmith, we're going to be carrying on with the fireplace guard, we're going to be making the legs for it, and we're also going to be going over some basic principles of jig making and also estimating when hole punching is involved. We will be doing a little bit of jig making. Matt made this for me very kindly. We used the bending jig from the previous episode in order to make this jig up so that we can make some parts in replica so that we had 2 or 3 of them. I'm going to show you how I did all of that now. We're going to start by doing the square corners and talking about upsetting the material halfway up a bar. Then we're going to move on to some hole punching, and then we're going to move on to doing some jig work. So I'll see you in a little bit. In this episode, we are going to be making these feet. I've got a pair of them to make. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be doing the 90. So we need to do a bit of an upset here, and I'm going to be talking about that process. We also need to punch some holes. These holes we need to do some stock estimation because they're going to stretch the material as we punch them. And also we're going to make a nice jig to help bend these up nice and tidy every time. Upsetting and square corners involves a lot of heat management. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clean up some of this scale and quench off some of the material, and then using these tongs I'm going to start jumping up our bar. Yep. Yeah, big one, and again, and again. Right, so these are our 2 footsers, or at least 2 halves of one side, and they've come out quite nice. They're not 100% like the drawing, but I'm happy with the way that they look, and they're going to look cool when they make it onto the piece itself. I was going to fire weld these together. In fact, that's not true. I was going to make these out of one piece, and then I thought, fire weld them together. Now I've backed out of that as well. I really don't have time to be messing around, so I'm just going to weld it together because I'd have to do another upset and then do the scarves, and yeah, there was just a lot to do, and I don't really have the time. Anyway, I'm going to weld these 2 together, and then once they've been welded together, I'm going to grind most of it away, not all of it. I'm going to take it over to the forge. I'm going to run it under the power hammer and get it looking all nice and dapper. So I've had Matt make up this little jig that goes in the vise. Very lovely job he's done as well. He used the bending jig. I'll give you a close-up of it actually. He used the bending jig that we made, or well, we didn't make, that we used in the last video. And he's welded it together. He's put some little some supporting bits in there, and he's welded it to this plate. Now I need to use this so that we can bend up. Oh, another close-up coming up. So we can bend up the legs for the base, which we're going to try and get done today, which will be super awesome if we manage to get them done. However, I managed to make this too big, too long, so I'm going to have to cut it and weld it back together again. which I will do shortly, but I'm not going to do it at the minute because we need to work some things out. So the first thing that we need to do is we've got some 25 by 10, some inch by 3/8 that we're going to bend around this jig because we need to basically bolster this away from the outside of the jig so that when we punch the hole in it, it's all going to sit nice and tidy. So that's the first thing that we need to do. We need to do that. Then once we've done that, I've got myself another piece of 20 square, another piece of 3/4 inch square, which we are going to set to, well, we're going to measure, we're going to punch the hole in, we're going to drift the hole, and then we're going to set it to a specific length so that we know basically how much material we need to bend up for the legs. So that's what we're going to do now. So Matthew's going to get the material hot that we need to put in here. I'm going to do those close-ups I was talking about, and then we will start talking about how to work out the stretch because of the punched hole. Yeah, go on then. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, you're going to have to straighten that up, I think. Yeah, go on, pull that down then. Because of the weld underneath, I can't quite get tight, get the clamp tight in. So what I've done is I've just got it all hot, get it clamped on there. Well, I say that, Matthew's done most of this, which is good. So what we're going to do in a minute, we're going to cut a section out of the middle after we've marked it up and we know that everything's in the right place. And then Matt's going to weld that piece on there. And then we're ready to start doing some of the other bits. So whilst this cools down, we'll get on and do some of the other bits. In the process of making these legs, I managed to mess up the hole punching part quite a bit. So the bit of footage I had was never the piece I used. The piece I used, I didn't get very good video footage of. And I was also thinking, I think it might be a good idea to go over this in a bit more detail in a separate video, the hole punching at least. But also, I don't feel like I transferred the information that I was trying to get over very well either. The point I was trying to make in the video is as you punch a hole in whatever it is that you're making, the length of this bar is going to change. So that's what we're going to go over now. We're going to talk about why that's important, because if I wanted to make those legs as one piece, which doesn't happen in the end, I would need to know how much stretch I'm going to get from each hole. So if you made a rail for the bottom of a gate and you punched each hole, you would need to know quite accurately how long that rail is going to get as you keep punching the holes. So these types of experiments are important to do as you go along in the process. So the bar I'm using is 300 millimeters in length, or 11 inches and 3/4 roughly. I'm going to go with the 300 millimeters, that's because what I marked it up. I'm then going to use a slitting punch and this 12 millimeter drift to punch and drift this hole in the center of the bar. Once we've done that, we'll measure it so we can work out how much the bar has lengthened due to the punching process. Well, if everything went to plan, I managed to get 2 videos done there. But yes, there will be a video posted shortly about that hole punching process. I'll also be showing you how to do it in slightly thinner bar as well, especially if you're into making bottle openers. There'll be some nice tips and tricks in there for you guys and girls at home to pick up on if you're new to blacksmithing. Let's measure this, and if I did this right, last time I only got 1 millimeter of stretch, and I've got the same now, so that's good. Well, about the same. Yeah, about 1 millimeter of stretch, which is really good. So when you're designing your gates or railings or balconettes or balustrades or whatever it is that you're designing, it's important to take into account the fact that if you're going to punch the holes for tenons or connections of any sort, you really need to think about that stretch and how that stretch is going to affect the total length of that bar. So we've got 1 mil here. If there were 20 holes, that's 20 mils different. So if I cut the bar off and it was too short, for example, or too long, and I just punched the holes wherever I wanted to, then I would end up getting into a situation where the holes at the end would be in a different place to where they need to be compared to these holes, or things will be closer together, or you know. So it's something to be aware of, and it's something to bear in mind when you're designing your architectural projects. Finished jig, which is looking really lush. So basically we've got the gap here now, which this piece can sit in, and there's no way that that can touch on there. We can actually bend this round now and get our really nice radius for our legs. So I'm going to get on with that. I've got to make 2 more feet, and yeah, we'll hopefully get both of these done by the end of today. Okay, so what I've done is I've punched a hole in the center of this bar now, because on reflection it would appear that I might not have measured it quite as badly as I thought. And I'm going to show you what I think I measured just now, but to accurately identify whether I have or haven't done it wrong, I've taken this piece of 20 square and I've drawn it down into the same stock size, and I'm just going to bend it up on the jig just to make sure that we haven't made any mistakes. So when I measured this bit before, I think I measured from the start of the foot and across the radius to the end, or the start of the other foot. Then I measured it again, and I measured it from the end of here to the end of here through the arc that was drawn on, because I made a very crude compass to do it. So I think what I've got now is the correct distance, because yeah, I think I'm right, but we're going to check it. We're going to check it with that piece, line it up and see if it sits nice and everything, and then if it does, we'll finish the jig off, and then we'll bend up one and just have a look at it, put it up, and then I'll weld the other one together and show you that, and I'm probably going to leave the video. Okay, when I come to put this together in the future, when we do the actual pieces, there'll be a bolt in the middle here that I can bolt through the hole we've punched, so I can get it in the middle, but for the minute I'm going to use a G-clamp that doesn't fit. Like I was saying before I rudely interrupted myself with my own failure, was that when it comes to the real deal on this, I will be using a clamp, a bolt through this part in order to hold it down, so I won't need to go through this stage, because I'll have a nut or some sort of nut and socket set up so that I can use, well, just be quicker and use that hole that I've punched in order to get myself looking really dapper. But what I am also going to do here is I'm going to just set up some of those other clamps and just have them so that as it cools down, I'll be able to just hold them with these other clamps. Okay, so I'm going to leave the work in the jig and let it cool down. It's all clamped in. It's looking pretty good. I think it's going to be a lot easier to do when we've got the bolt hole in the middle. However, it's working pretty good. So I'm going to let that cool down. I've got a quick errand to run. I'm then going to come back. I'm going to weld the other one together, and then I'm going to put them both in the jig. And we'll leave it there. Okay, I'm back from my errands. This has cooled down, and it fits reasonably well to the drawing. It's not 100% perfect, and the issues are that these bends aren't in, so they don't. Anyway, what I'm going to try and do is bend up the one that is together and was the same length as this, and see if we can get something on here that looks something like this one. I do think that I'm going to have to do some messing around on the anvil, but you know. Anyway, let's go. Right, the jig's basically finished. I've welded a 12mm, an M12 bolt, and I've got myself a nut, but I've also got a little spacer washer thing that I can slide over the top. and give me a bit more surface area, but I've made it a bit longer so I can hold it. So what I'm going to do is, we've got some hot in the forge, in the gas forge. I'm going to pop them on and just have a look to see what happens, basically. Oh wait. Right, that's that side. Tosser, I think. Need to do a little bit of tweaking on this. There's a few bits that need sorting out. However, I'm very happy with the way that these have come out. They do look a lot tidier than the drawing. I do need to do some leveling up and get everything sorted. We will cover that later on. I might need to transpose some of these parts onto some metal so that when they're hot, we can just knock them about and then touch them up to the metal so that we know that, that they're getting there and they're looking nice and tidy and right. However, really, really pleased with these. They look really dapper. They've come out really nice and they're very, very, very accurate to each other, which is the main thing. So the next episode, what we're going to end up doing is this squishy ball piece here. We're going to have to make some spacer tooling. In fact, we're going to have to make spacer tooling for everything, I think. We might be able to do some of these without some tooling. We can use some of the hammer stops, but this one here, we're going to have to make some special tooling because we're going to need a tenon on this end. And I think we're also going to need a tenon on this end. Hopefully, as we go through this project, you will learn lots about architectural blacksmithing, sculptural blacksmithing, and just general blacksmithing processes as a whole. I think it's really good to see and understand the fact that architectural work has to be very accurate in order for it to go together nicely. It's like good joinery, basically, at the end of the day. And with wood, because wood's soft, it squishes a little bit. You can get away with a little bit of intolerance, whereas here in metalworking, you'll see later on, I'll be pulling my hair out because things won't quite be the right size and we'll have to remake them and so on and so forth. So hopefully this video was interesting. If you did find it interesting, please let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what else you'd like to see along the way in this series. There was supposed to be some stuff about making the smaller tenons in this episode, but the video was going to be too long, so I've cut that out. I'm going to add it into another rough and ready, or I'm going to have a rough and ready all about the tenons just on their own, and spring swages that we use to make the tenons. So yeah, that's coming up. There'll also be a video at some point of me punching the holes, a detailed video on hole punching. I think that's a good thing to start doing those little tips and tricks videos, because some of you people out there will definitely appreciate it, I'm very sure. Thank you so much for joining me. This is going super well. I'm really enjoying making the fireplace guard, and as a whole, it's coming together very, very nicely. I'm sure something's going to catch up with me and bite me in the bum at any point, but so far so good. We're doing some really good stuff so far, and I'm really, really enjoying making this project. Hopefully you are as well, and if you are, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you are a subscriber, why not ring that bell for notifications, because it tells you every time I make videos. I try to make videos as often as possible. I make probably one video a week. I try to make a few more. Sometimes I don't manage to get around to it. It just depends on how busy I've been and how much time I've had to get editing. Now, if you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to do a bit more to help me out and support the channel, there's a couple of ways you can do it, and you don't have to give me money in every example. You don't have to give me any money. What you can do is, the first thing you can do is drop a comment down below and share this video with your friends and on other platforms. It's a great way to get the word out there that I'm here and tell people what I'm doing. If you'd like to find out a bit more about the channel and feeds and news and information that comes through about things that are going on and how I'm going to do bits and bobs and stuff, you could go over to my Instagram. A link for that is in the description. Now, if you do go over to my Instagram, you will see stories. I put some stories up about making the jig. I put some stories up about the tools that I make here for blacksmithing tools and stuff like that. I leave pictures up on the grid of some of the projects and things that have been made here whilst we've been going along. And also, if you wanted to talk to me, it's probably the easiest way to get hold of me, because you can DM me and send me a message. Ask me questions about blacksmithing projects that are going on, and just help me out on general questions that I might be asking the community at any time. Another great way to support the channel is to head over to my Etsy, where I sell things like these lovely rounding hammers. There's everything up there from hammers to stock to tong blanks. These are forged tong blanks. I send them, you get 2 pairs plus 2 rivets for your tongs. I do all the hard work, so you don't have to. And there's t-shirts and merch and all sorts of really cool stuff over there. So if you'd like to support the channel in any way, shape or form, that's another great way to help me out here, is to go over and buy something. You might have to wait a little bit to get it. I'm very sorry about that. I'm quite busy, but everything that comes is of a good standard and it was made by these hands, and I'm very proud of everything that leaves this workshop. So if you are interested in helping, that is also a great way. So once again, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you have enjoyed this episode. I'm really enjoying the project so far. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link up here to a video that YouTube thinks is best from you. I'm going to leave a link down here to the most recently uploaded video. Down here is a video that I think you might like as well. This is probably the last rough and ready. And then there's a subscribe button here. I'll see you guys and girls later. Bye bye. Shiny hammer, shiny hammer.